All right, folks, this is chapter 2 of this vacuum X repair. This has got some parts removed so you can see what's going on in here. This thing was clear full of muddy dirt. So this obviously had been run until that tank was more than full, and then it filled this whole chamber up with muddy dirt, and it got high enough that that it got sucked into the it got sucked into, let's see, that's in vacuum, so that's yeah, the top tube goes to the vacuum, so it's going right up this. You can see the mud and crap that we've been digging out. We're going to hose it out, suck that muddy water and dirt right into the vacuum, into the blower. So we're going to test it and see how happy it is now that we've freed up and cleaned up the blower, and we're going to clean this up a little bit before we do that. All right, folks, we're about ready. We're tapped right into as close as you can get to the blower and the machine. It's going right into this diverter valve, which is a pretty clever thing that Vactron does. Don't get fooled by the name on the side of the machine. It's made by Vactron. So we're going to fire it up. This is kind of not really a flow straightener, but it's a recommendation by the manufacturer of the good vortex meter we got going here. And then, of course, downrange of it, we've got the little one that we build, the cheap and dirty Home Depot one. We're just going to compare the readings. So, fire in the hole. All right. All right, folks, so what I did here is I went into the Roots Howden specs for this particular blower. They don't have very many data points. They really only got the 3 data points, and but I put them in. I put them in in Excel, and I just drew a simple graph. Now we think that pump's turning about 2,000. We're going to measure it with the tach a little later on. The motor engine says it's a 2,500, but it's geared down a little bit. So if it's running about 2,000 RPM, it should be sucking about 550 to 600, and that's what my little cheap Home Depot rig says. And you can see that I think the other one said it was like 400 and 450, 500. Now the other one, the fancy one that's all lab standard and all that stuff, isn't calibrated for it doesn't derated for altitude. So I'm talking to the factory that makes those things. I'm saying, do we need to set like a barometric pressure in here so we have accurate flow at this altitude? I don't know if it is actually reading the right number for this altitude. Then my meter with no altitude correction is also spot on. So that's just a little, do we really need to correct that altitude or not? But I'm just saying that this blower is performing very close to factory specs. It really should have been more up in the 600 range, but it's not spinning that fast. So I think it's an overall success. I don't think the blower was harmed, but we found the high water mark in that filter housing. And the high water mark was definitely more than halfway up that inlet valve. So it was definitely sucking mud and dirt. So it's unfortunate that it happened. I wouldn't want to be the employee that caused it to happen. They could have fixed this easily had they immediately take the filter out, washed out the filter side. The other side's the cyclone side, which is a clever design. And if they'd flushed everything out, and then probably even right then, they could have maybe flushed out the blower, taken the hose off the blower and run some water down through it, and maybe just rocked the belt back and forth to free it up. It probably, what happened though is it got gunked up, and then somebody panicked. They shut it down. They left it in a lot for a few days. They went to start it, and of course then the blower was all rusted. The moving parts are all, they're all burnished, like cast iron parts, and as soon as they get water on them, they're going to rust. And so I think it just rusted itself shut. It didn't really have a lot of gunk in it. Some gunk came out when we freed it up, but yeah, if they had cleaned everything out and flushed it out right that very first day, they would never have had a problem. Or if once they discovered there was a problem, if they had just dumped like a half a gallon of WD-40 in it and let it set for a little bit, like we did. So in the end, that's all that was needed, and in the end, the thing is performing about what one would expect.